Hey guys, what's up? Derek from Bomb Socks with more Bomb Bites, where we feast upon the words of Christ one bite at a time. So where we last left off, I know it kind of is like mini-series form, where we last left off yesterday, where Mordecai, we had talked about Queen Vashti's courage, we talked about Mordecai's courage, and now it's time for Queen Esther to be able to shine and show her courage through this story. So where we left off, Mordecai was like, look, you have been brought to this kingdom for such a time as this. Again, that message we'll talk more about tomorrow. But Esther's like, okay, I don't know what to do right here. Nobody just goes in front of the king because that's death if you do that. So Esther's phrase in verse number 16 is so cool. This is where she gives Mordecai this message. Go, gather together all of the Jews that are present in Shushan and fast ye for me. I think that's awesome. Neither eat nor drink for 3 days, night or day. I also and my maidens will fast likewise. That's super cool. You got a unity that's put together there. And so will I go in unto the king, which is not according to the law. And if I perish, I perish. That is so reminiscent to me of one of my favorite stories later on in the book of Daniel, where you've got Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They're just like, King, we're not going to worship your golden idol. And we know that if we do this, yeah, we're most likely going to die. But we're not going to do that. We know that our God will save us. And then that wonderful phrase in Daniel chapter 3, verse 18, where it says, but if not, be it known unto thee, O king, we will not serve thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. So it's got that same vibe to it. She's like, I'm going to go into this. I know that God will save me. And if I perish, I perish, but I'm going to do everything in my power to do so. That is courage. Well, you go into chapter 5, and it says, Esther goes in, puts on her royal apparel, stands in the inner court of the king's house, and verse number 2, she obtained favor in his sight, and the king held out to Esther the golden scepter that was in his hand. And so Esther drew near, touched the top of the scepter, and then the king said unto her, and I love this, what wilt thou, Queen Esther? What is thy request? It shall be given thee to half of the kingdom. He loved Esther. Like I said, look, I'll give you half my kingdom. You know how crazy and eccentric this king was. He threw a 6-month party earlier on in the story. Also, he's like, I'm going to give you half of my kingdom. This is huge. So they decide to throw a party. This king, like I said, Ahasuerus, seemed to love banquets and food. I respect that. Haman apparently is having a good day at this. He's super happy about this. It says Haman, this is verse 9 of chapter 5, Haman went forth that day joyful and with a glad heart. Well, when Haman saw Mordecai in the king's gate, that he stood not up nor moved for him, he was full of indignation against Mordecai. So what does he do? Verse number 14, let a gallows be made 50 cubits high. That's a little much. And tomorrow speak thou unto the king that Mordecai may be hanged thereon. Go thou in merrily with the king unto the banquet. And the thing pleased Haman, and he caused the gallows to be made. So he's like, we're going to set up this death of Mordecai, this guy who will not bow to me. Now what's interesting is you get to chapter 6. Now this is where I told you yesterday how that little incident in chapter 2 where Mordecai saw 2 of the king's men who were conspiring against him, and then Mordecai shared that with Esther. It was made known to the king, and these 2 men were killed for that. Verse 1, on that night the king could not sleep. He commanded that the book of records of the chronicles that they be read. He's like, I can't sleep. Come read to me. So it was found written that Mordecai had told of Bigthana and Teresh. We talked about them in chapter 2. 2 of the king's chamberlains, the keepers of the door, who sought to lay hand on the king Ahasuerus. And the king said, what honor and dignity hath been done to Mordecai for this? And then said the king's servants that ministered unto him, there is nothing done to him. And the king's like, why not? This guy saved the day. And so what do? They bring in Mordecai and they make him honored. All of a sudden Haman's like, wait a minute. This guy, this doesn't work out because I hate this guy. He would not bow to me because he's a Jew. And then you get to chapter 7, the chapter heading, Esther reveals Haman's plot to destroy the Jews. He is hanged on his own gallows. In fact, verse number 10, so they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai, and then was the king's wrath pacified. Well, just the chapter headings of the next couple chapters to kind of conclude this story. Mordecai in chapter 8 is honored, placed over the house of Haman. Ahasuerus issues a decree to preserve the Jews. Chapter 9, The Feast of Purim is instituted to commemorate their deliverance and victory. If you want to do some interesting study, go study about the Feast of Purim. It is something that is still done today, where the story of Esther is very much celebrated because she saves the day for her people. And then chapter 10, Mordecai the Jew stands next to Ahasuerus in power and in might. So now we go back to this idea of the importance of making sure that you stand as a witness of God at all times and in all things and in all places. Just like Vashti did, just like Mordecai did, and just like Esther did. And again, Esther saves the day. But I love how these other two help set up the fact that Esther's able to do that. Now, tomorrow I want to conclude with, I think, what is the overarching theme again for this whole week of the study of the book of Esther, and I think it is wonderful. Thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and thanks for sharing these messages. We're so grateful that you always do that for us. And if you haven't already, please go check out our amazingly comfortable gospel-themed socks at BOM-socks.com. Godspeed, and we'll see you. Bye-bye.